we decided to have a yard sale. My wife, Sarah, and I had been talking about it for weeks. We'd accumulated so much stuff over the years, and it felt like time to declutter. Our garage isn't huge, but it's a decent size, and we have a driveway, so we figured we had enough space to set everything up. We spent the better part of a weekend sorting through boxes, dusting off old furniture, and pricing everything. We had clothes, books, kitchenware, some tools I wasn't using anymore, a real mix of things. Sarah had even baked cookies to try and draw in more customers. The yard sale itself went surprisingly well. We had a lot of people come by, and we sold quite a bit. It was tiring, dealing with all the customers and making change, but it felt good to see stuff go to new homes. Most of the people were friendly, just looking for a bargain. Though there was this one guy. He was tall and lanky, with a kind of hunched posture. He kept to the edges of the yard, away from the tables, and stared a lot. He had these unsettlingly intense eyes, like he was trying to see right through you, assessing, calculating. Didn't buy anything, just browsed in a way that made my skin crawl a bit. He made me uneasy. I shrugged it off at the time, figuring everyone's a little different. But his presence lingered in the back of my mind, a subtle unease that I couldn't quite shake. By late afternoon, we were both pretty worn out. The stream of customers had slowed to a trickle. We decided to call it a day. I helped Sarah carry the unsold items back into the garage. It was a relief to get everything out of the driveway and back where it belonged. The garage felt almost cavernous as it slowly filled back up, the shadows in the corners seeming to deepen, stretching and distorting in the fading light. We closed the garage door, the heavy metal groaning as it went down, sealing in the silence, and we went inside, collapsing onto the couch. I was physically drained, but also mentally relieved it was over, eager to put the day behind us. Later that night, we were watching a movie. I was just starting to relax, finally letting my guard down, when suddenly we heard a noise. It was a distinct sound, like a door opening and then shutting. It wasn't loud, but it was sharp and clear, a violation of the stillness. My wife and I both froze, every nerve ending on high alert, our hearts pounding in unison. We looked at each other, trying to figure out what it could have been. The sound seemed to come from the kitchen area. A cold wave washed over me, a sudden spike of adrenaline, a primal fear gripping my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs. It wasn't just the sound, it was the silence that followed. An unnatural quiet, thick and heavy, settled over the house, pressing down on us. A suffocating blanket of dread. The movie on the TV faded into meaningless background noise, the flickering light casting dancing shadows that seemed to writhe and twist, mocking the safety of our home. I got up cautiously, my muscles tense, every instinct screaming at me to run, but also to protect Sarah, and she followed close behind me. We slowly made our way toward the kitchen, my ears straining for any further sound, my breath catching in my throat, each step heavy with apprehension. When we got there, I caught a glimpse of someone. A man. He was just inside the doorway, near the shadows of the dining table, but then he darted out of sight. I barely got a good look at him, but I saw enough. It was a man, and he was definitely not supposed to be there. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence, threatening to burst from my chest, a wild animal trapped in a cage. I didn't know who he was or how he'd gotten in. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Had he been there all along? Had that creepy guy from the yard sale somehow snuck back in? A predator stalking its prey? My wife and I backed away quickly, retreating toward the other end of the house, our backs pressed against the wall. Shadows seemed to stretch and distort in the dim light, playing tricks on my eyes, making it hard to discern what was real and what was imagined. The familiar landscape of our home transformed into a terrifying maze. Every creak of the old house sounded amplified, like deliberate footsteps in the dark, each one a hammer blow to my sanity, a relentless torment. We ended up in our bedroom, and I closed the door and locked it, my hands shaking uncontrollably, fumbling with the deadbolt. It all happened so fast, a blur of fear and confusion, a nightmare unfolding in real time, our sanctuary turned into a trap. We were both terrified. We didn't know what this guy wanted or if he was dangerous. Was he armed? Was he deranged? Was he still out there lurking in the shadows, waiting? I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling with it, the smooth surface slick with sweat, and we called the police, my voice trembling as I tried to explain the situation. We could hear some shuffling and movement on the other side of the door. A floorboard creaked in the hallway, followed by the distinct sound of a drawer being opened and then slammed shut. The sounds of someone rifling through our belongings, violating our space. It was the worst feeling, being trapped and vulnerable, not knowing what was going to happen, every second stretching into an eternity, the minutes crawling by with agonizing slowness. We stayed huddled in the corner of the bedroom, Sarah clinging to my arm, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her eyes wide with terror, waiting for what felt like an eternity. The silence was punctuated only by the distant sound of sirens, growing louder as they approached. A beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. A promise of rescue in the face of the unknown. Finally, the police arrived. I could hear them searching the house, their voices echoing through the rooms, the beams of their flashlights cutting through the darkness, slicing through the tension. It was still nerve-wracking, but it was a relief to know help had arrived, that we weren't alone anymore. Eventually, an officer came to our bedroom and told us they'd found the guy. He was hiding in our basement, behind the old furnace, curled up in a ball like a cornered animal. I was stunned. I couldn't understand why he was in our house. It didn't take long for us to piece it together. The guy must have been at our yard sale earlier. He'd managed to hide in our garage without us noticing. That unsettling man from the sale, the one who had watched us with those predatory eyes. With the garage door closed, he was able to get into our house through the door that leads from the garage to the house. We usually don't lock that door because the garage doors are always locked. We always felt the garage was like an extension of the house, a secure extension of our lives, a safe space. We were wrong. When the police searched the basement, they found my wife's jewelry box, tucked away under a pile of old blankets, a clear indication of his intentions. But there was something else, too. A small, sharp knife hidden in his boot. It was then that the full weight of the situation hit us, the true horror of what could have been. It was a creepy realization, a profound violation of our safety and privacy, a chilling glimpse into the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of everyday life. This guy had been there, hiding, watching, waiting, a predator in our home, just feet away, unseen. The thought of it made my skin crawl, the image of him moving through our house, a ghost in our own home. The worst part was knowing he had been there. We've definitely changed our habits since then. That door is always locked now, and we have cameras inside and out. A constant reminder. Even now, weeks later, I still wonder, how long had he been watching before we noticed? And what would have happened if we hadn't noticed at all? I sighed as I pulled into the parking lot of my apartment complex, where a yard sale was being held. The moving clean-out sale sign was crudely made with marker on cardboard, but it had caught my attention while driving back from yet another awkward lunch with my ex-wife. 3 months since the divorce, and I was still sleeping on an air mattress, slowly furnishing my new one-bedroom apartment. The yard sale was set up in the parking lot of Pinewood Apartments, an older building but in a decent neighborhood. Folding tables displayed kitchen items, books, and miscellaneous household goods. A small furniture section was arranged on the asphalt, featuring a dresser, nightstand, and a disassembled bed frame. A thin man with wire-rimmed glasses approached as I inspected the bed frame. "Interested in the bedroom set? I've got the matching dresser and nightstand too." The man gestured to the nearby furniture pieces. "Maybe. Just moved into a new place after my divorce, starting from scratch." I ran my hand over the solid wood headboard. Good quality. It's cherry wood. The previous tenant left it behind. The man adjusted his glasses. "I'm Walter, the property manager here, trying to clear out some abandoned items." I looked closer at the furniture. It was well made, much better than anything I could afford new. How much for the whole set? Normally, I'd ask $600, but I need it gone today. The storage room is getting cleared tomorrow. Walter scratched the back of his neck. "How about $250 for everything? Bed frame, dresser, nightstand, and I'll throw in the mattress if you want it." I raised an eyebrow. "That seems too good to be true." Walter shrugged. "Like I said, I need it gone. The previous tenant disappeared about 6 months ago, left everything behind. After the required waiting period, it legally becomes abandoned property." "Disappeared?" I frowned. "Probably just skipped town. Young woman, bit flighty according to the neighbors." Walter waved his hand dismissively. "Nothing sinister. We're not required to disclose that to buyers of the items, but I believe in transparency." Despite the odd circumstances, I couldn't pass up the deal. 40 minutes later, with the furniture Tetrised into my SUV and the mattress strapped to the roof, I was heading back to my apartment. That evening, I assembled the bed frame in my bedroom. The instructions were missing, but it seemed straightforward enough. As I was attaching the final side rail, I noticed something unusual, a small gap in what should have been solid wood. Curious, I pressed against the section, and to my surprise, it slid open, revealing a hidden compartment. "What the hell?" I muttered, peering inside. The compartment contained a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Unwrapping it, I found 3 women's driver's licenses, all with different names, but the photos looked similar young women with dark hair. None of the names were familiar. I felt a chill run down my spine. I set the IDs on my nightstand and continued examining the bed frame, finding nothing else unusual. The dresser was next. After removing all the drawers, I noticed the back panel of one drawer was shorter than it should be. Behind it was another hidden space containing a flash drive. My curiosity overcoming my growing unease, I booted up my laptop and plugged in the drive. It contained hundreds of photos, all seemingly taken inside an apartment. Some showed a young woman going about daily activities, unaware she was being photographed. Other folders contained photos of different women in different apartments over what appeared to be several years. "Jesus," I whispered, quickly ejecting the drive. With growing paranoia, I examined the nightstand and found another modification, a false bottom in the drawer revealing a small notebook. The handwritten entries detailed observations of a woman named Tessa Reynolds, one of the names from the IDs. The entries described her daily routine, what she wore, who visited her apartment, and when she slept. Tessa sleeps deeply, doesn't hear the door. #243 key works perfectly. I realized with horror that #243 was my apartment number. I was living in Tessa's former apartment. Sleep was impossible that night. I sat in my living room away from the bedroom furniture with all the lights on. At first light, I called in sick to work and started searching online for information about Tessa Reynolds. There wasn't much, a few social media profiles that hadn't been updated in months. No news articles about a missing woman. It was as if she had simply vanished, just as Walter had said. On a hunch, I searched the other names from the IDs. Allison Myers and Jennifer Klein. Allison had disappeared 2 years ago, according to a brief local news article. Her case remained open. There was nothing about Jennifer. The pieces were starting to form a disturbing picture. I grabbed my phone and searched for information about Walter Jenkins, the property manager. There wasn't much, but a local community webpage showed he'd been the manager at Pinewood for nearly 8 years. My phone rang, startling me. Unknown number. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Mark, it's Walter from the yard sale yesterday, just checking if the furniture is working out for you." My mouth went dry. "Yeah, it's fine, thanks." "Great to hear. I realized I never gave you the updated key for your apartment. The lock was changed after the last tenant left, but you must have been using the old one. I have an extra if you want to stop by the office today." "Sure," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'll come by later." After hanging up, I paced my living room. The offer of a new key seemed innocent enough, but combined with everything else, it raised alarm bells. The notebook entry about the key working perfectly echoed in my mind. Rather than meeting Walter, I drove to the local police station. I brought the IDs, flash drive, and notebook with me. The officer at the desk seemed skeptical but agreed to take a report. 3 hours later, I watched from my SUV across the street as police officers led Walter Jenkins out of the property management office in handcuffs. Detective Chen approached my vehicle. "We found enough evidence in his office to obtain a search warrant for his home," she said. "You were right to be suspicious. Jenkins had keys to every apartment, and we found multiple hidden cameras in his desk drawer ready to be installed." "What about the women? Tessa?" I asked. Detective Chen's face grew solemn. "We don't know yet, but we found a hidden door in the building's basement that leads to a concealed room. Forensics is examining it now." I felt sick. I can't believe I was sleeping in her bed. "You potentially saved lives, Mr. Lawson. We're going to need your help identifying any other modifications to the furniture. There may be more evidence we haven't found yet." 2 weeks later, I stood with the Detective Chen as they brought out the remains found beneath the concrete floor of Walter's garage. Jennifer and Allison would finally be going home to their families. Tessa was still in the hospital but recovering well. She'd asked to meet me the stranger who had inadvertently saved her life. That night, back in my apartment with its new sterile furniture, I stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Chen. "Interview next Tuesday?" I smiled. Sometimes, the most unexpected yard sales change your life. Just not always in the ways you might think. The April sunshine warmed my back as I arranged the last of my belongings on the folding tables in my driveway. 3 months of decluttering had culminated in this yard sale, a chance to convert my excess into cash before my big move. I'd priced everything reasonably. Old books at 50 cents, kitchen gadgets for $1, the exercise equipment I'd barely touched at 10. The morning crowd had been steady. By noon, half my inventory was gone, and my cash box was satisfyingly heavy. I was adjusting a display of picture frames when a shadow fell across the table. "Nice collection you've got here." I looked up to see a middle-aged man in a light jacket. His smile was pleasant enough, but his eyes darted constantly over my merchandise, to the street, to my house, then back to me. There was something oddly familiar about him, though I couldn't place it. "Thanks," I replied. "Anything catch your interest?" He picked up a vintage alarm clock, turning it over in his hands. "Maybe, but I was wondering if you'd consider a trade instead of cash." I hesitated. "I'm moving soon, so I'm trying to get rid of things, not acquire more." Of course. He nodded quickly. But this is special, something unique, perfect for someone like you." I wasn't sure what someone like me meant, but before I could ask, he reached into his jacket and pulled out an old leather briefcase. It looked expensive but well worn, with brass fittings and a combination lock on the front. "Italian leather," he explained, holding it out to me. "Genuine vintage, from the 1970s, I believe." I took it carefully. The leather was soft and supple under my fingers, clearly high quality. When I turned it, I could feel it had some weight to it. "What's in it?" I asked, reaching for the combination lock. "Oh, nothing important," he said quickly, placing his hand over mine to stop me. "Just some old papers I haven't cleared out. The case is what's valuable. The lock sticks sometimes, but I'm sure you can figure it out. It's set to 5832 right now." I examined the briefcase more carefully. The craftsmanship was excellent, and it would sell for at least $100 at a vintage store. "What are you interested in trading for?" His eyes landed on an old leather-bound journal I'd found in my grandmother's attic. Empty pages, never used. That would do nicely. The journal was maybe worth $15. This seemed like an uneven trade in my favor. "Are you sure? This briefcase might be worth quite a bit if it's authentic." "Oh, I'm certain," he said. His voice suddenly tense. "The case needs a new home, someone who'll appreciate it properly." I should have noticed how eager he was to be rid of it, how his fingers twitched slightly when I considered returning it to him. "I don't really need a briefcase," I said hesitantly. "But you could sell it," he pressed, "or use it for your move. Quality like this is hard to find these days." He was right, and the price difference was too good to pass up. "All right," I said, "you've got a deal." Relief flooded his face, though he tried to mask it with a casual nod. "Excellent choice." He snatched up the journal and tucked it inside his jacket in a single fluid motion. "Don't you want a bag for that?" I asked. "No need." He was already backing away. "Enjoy the briefcase. Remember that combination I told you." Before I could ask anything else, he turned and walked quickly down the street, never looking back. The rest of the afternoon passed uneventfully. By 5 o'clock, I had sold most of my items and made just over $300. As I packed up the remains, I found myself repeatedly examining the briefcase, admiring its quality. That night, after dinner, I set the briefcase on my coffee table and examined it more carefully. Under proper lighting, I could see a small monogram on the bottom corner, LDM. The leather was indeed high quality, but there were subtle scratch marks around the lock, as if someone had tried to force it open at some point. I dialed in the combination the man had given me, 5832. The lock clicked open smoothly. Inside, I found what appeared to be business documents, expense reports, and a manila envelope tucked into the inner pocket. Curious, I opened the envelope first. Inside were several photographs. As I spread them out on my coffee table, my blood went cold. The photos showed a series of isolated locations: an abandoned warehouse, a remote wooded area, what looked like a basement. In each photo, there was evidence of something disturbing. Bloodstains on concrete, a collection of driver's licenses spread out on a table, a wall with dates and names meticulously written on it. Most chilling was a photo of a dirt floor with what looked unmistakably like a shallow grave being dug. With shaking hands, I turned to the business documents. They were expense reports and receipts, seemingly innocent at first glance. But looking closer, I noticed patterns. Purchases of industrial cleaning supplies, plastic sheeting, duct tape, and specific tools, all documented with meticulous precision. There were addresses listed too, corresponding to the locations in the photographs. My phone rang, startling me so badly I nearly dropped the papers. The caller ID showed an unknown number. "Hello," I answered. There was silence for a moment, then a voice. The man from the yard sale. "You opened it, not a question, a statement. How did you get my number?" "It was in the contact list in the side pocket," he said flatly. "I knew you'd look eventually, everyone does." My eyes darted to the briefcase, and sure enough, there was a small pocket I hadn't noticed that contained a worn address book. "What is all this?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "These photos, these records." "That's the beauty of it," he replied, his voice eerily calm. "Now it's your problem. The police have been looking for that briefcase for months. My fingerprints are wiped clean, but yours are all over it now." "I'm calling the police right now," I said. His laugh was hollow. "Go ahead, but remember, you're in possession of evidence linked to multiple missing persons. Evidence you mysteriously acquired and kept hidden. Your fingerprints, your home, your possession." "This is insane," I said. "I'll tell them about you, about the trade, a mysterious stranger at a yard sale. With no surveillance footage, no witnesses who paid attention to our interaction, and how will you explain waiting to report it? They'll wonder why you didn't call immediately upon finding those photos." My mind raced, realizing the impossible situation I was in. "One last piece of advice," he continued. "When the police start closing in, and they will, eventually, find someone else to pass it to. Someone careless, someone who won't think to check inside before accepting." The call ended. I stood there, staring at the evidence of multiple crimes spread across my coffee table, feeling suddenly trapped. In one simple transaction, I had become an unwitting accessory, with my fingerprints and DNA now contaminating what was clearly evidence in ongoing investigations. 3 days from now, I would be hosting one final garage sale before my move. As I gathered the horrible contents back into the briefcase, a terrible thought began to form. I could clean the outside of the briefcase, make it look even more appealing. Keep the combination to myself. Trade it to someone else. Someone who wouldn't check the contents until I was long gone. I thought of my neighbor with the expensive tastes, always bragging about her vintage collection. The woman who had reported my fence for being 2 inches over the property line. The horror of what I was considering hit me fully then. This was exactly what the man had done to me, deliberately passing on evidence of terrible crimes, transferring risk and suspicion to an unwitting victim. Yet, as I heard a car slow down on my street, was it just a passing vehicle or something more ominous? I found myself carefully wiping down the briefcase's exterior, removing the most visible fingerprints while leaving mine on the interior documents. 3 more days. I just needed to last 3 more days before I could rid myself of this burden. And so the cycle would continue, the evidence passing from hand to hand, each recipient becoming both victim and perpetrator in turn.